I would like to start off with a small prayer. So, if all of us can read after me with me, that will be nice. So, I'm going to show you a little prayer here, and this is how I like to start our program. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to Thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for Thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with Thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with Thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for Thee. So, we want to today discuss a little bit about what value education is all about and what is the role as we understand for teachers in this program. I'm sure all of you, most of you here are already uh, working as a teacher, which is a good sign. So it will be easy for you to look at it from all the perspectives to understand our roles a little bit more properly. Before we jump into value education, let us look at education per se as to what it is supposed to be. When we when we talk about education per se, we look at children, which is our main target. We understand that all that what we are trying to do in our system of education is for the betterment, for development of our children. So what is that what these children require? What is that we are supposed to do which will make these children what we expect them to become? And in this, what we look at it is that education, what we understand is, has a two broad outlooks. One, what we call it as a spiritual education, and another, we understand it as a secular education. Under secular education, we have things like your curriculum, your extracurricular activities, your games and sports, your housing, your music, dance, dramatics, all that which comes under the schooling system is called in secular education. And the second aspect is spiritual. And what do we understand by spiritual education? Is the moral education, is that education which connotes to your values of family, of your culture, of your country. So when you mix these two, then the holistic education takes into account. Now, if you look at the graph, the diagram, it has a spiritual education slightly tilted higher, which means even if there is a secular education, the amount of the moral education, spiritual education, is supposedly very important to bring that equilibrium together. Now, for example, if you're talking to your child and you note that there is something negative the child is reflecting, and you want your child to improve, if you talk about one negative element and you want to highlight to the child about its pros and cons, it is not enough that you speak about one positive, because ultimately the child will only carry the negative influence. So, if there is a need for us to give a negative example or anything which has a negative connotation, then we need to give at least 7 to 10 positive examples for a child to develop the balance of understanding the true value of education. Otherwise, this what do you call, this equilibrium will not be right. So when we look at it from that perspective, we tend to understand that spiritual education and secular education needs to be together. So when we look at education per se, what is education? We understand that education has come from a Latin word called educare. Educare means to mold or to bring forth. In a simple understanding, when you, through education, what we intend to do is actually to mold a child and to bring out something from the child. It has an connotation from agriculture, educare comes from there, agriculture, that bringing forth from earth we bring out produce, but from the human child, what do we bring forth? And that is where we understand we bring out what is latent in a child, what is inbuilt, innate, latent, and that element, that process of bringing out what is hidden in the child is education. And what we bring out from the child is human values. Now, why I'm giving you this whole concept of value system is to understand that the whole concept of value education program is first primarily to make us realize that whatever we are trying to learn in our lives, whatever we are trying to explore and understand, is basically within us. So there is no knowledge that we need to come out from outside. There is nothing that is outside us. So all that what we are trying to learn is right within us. And the whole process of education, which I told you is bringing out, is that latent potency, the latent knowledge which is hidden within us. So that element which is core within us, we call that as human values. It is like mud and the pot. You have a mud made up of pot, or pot made up of mud. Can you segregate? Can you separate mud from the pot?
No.
The
No.
process itself is not possible because both are one. Only thing it shapes differently. So human values is like mud, and this body, this physicality of our whole creation is the pot. So what we are trying to understand is to understand our own self, to know who we are. Like in the last session when we discussed about the practicality of our life, spirituality, and there we stressed upon this element as to the whole process is to know ourselves. The education is a formal way of helping our children and ourselves to understand how to explore that I-ness, that oneness, in a systematic, formal process and program. So, from this logical understanding of definitions, we understand that what we are trying to do from education is to go within, help through our legal formal programs to go within to explore ourselves, to know who we are. And that core which is within us, which is common to all of us, we call it as human values. I hope so far so good. So we look at what is this human value. Now let's try to define this human values. Of course, human values cannot be just put in words, but just to explain it, it can be described as the core human aspirations, which are eternal and universal by nature and does not change with time, place, and circumstances. Now, note certain words in this. This is human values as a core human aspirations. Now, this is what we aspire for. This is what which is core and latent in us. So that is human value, which are eternal and universal by nature. So when I say eternal and universal by nature, it has got no time limit. They are same yesterday, they'll remain same today and tomorrow. They were there from eternity and they will remain till the eternity. They are universal because they are applicable everywhere. We don't have to worry about, hey, is it values different for Indian, from African, from Chinese, from Americans, or anybody for that matter. So the whole concept is they're eternal and universal by nature, and they do not change with time, place, and circumstances. See, when we talk about value of love, value of truth, value of peace, see, these are some concepts which don't change anywhere. Whether I'm born here or in America or any part of the world, the desire to respect, the desire to love, the desire to know who I am does not change. The quest, the inquiry, the quest to know truth remains. And that is what we call as human values. So if you look at this definition and keep in mind, now I'm just setting a pace and a kind of a base for all of us to explore. So if you look at from a very logical definitions to see that first of all, our whole prime responsibility is to know who we are. And whatever we do in our life is also based upon or focused on exploring this very truth that I am, I. Who am I? And now, when the journey starts from the schooling and we look at our children, how do I teach the child who am I? And how do I learn from that process of education that what is my role in this creation? What is my role in this life? What am I supposed to achieve? And how do I attain a state wherein I can call that I am happy? I am what I'm looking for. So, in the formal education process, the purpose of education itself states that we are supposed to create the environment to know people, to understand the child, and help them to explore human values. Because only through this exploration, the child will not only learn about themselves, but will be able to understand their core nature and attribute, which is nothing but happiness. So, keeping this as a premise, we will move forward to understand further our role in terms of human values. So, let me uh, show you a little bit. I'm trying to share the screen. I'm trying to learn this also at the same time doing this. Yes. Okay. Sorry. I'm just trying to adjust the screens also. So, traditionally, to summarize the whole thing, in the traditional method, we have looked at that we are focusing only on teaching subjects. We focus on developing the child through scholastic knowledge. From there, we move into value-based approach. We understand that passing the information is not sufficient, whereas transformation should be the goal. And education must and is truth only if we learn to have educare as our basic principle. Now, this is the whole summation, if I may put it like that, so that we can understand that this is what we are expected, to achieve in our life. Now, if I now let me share a thought here. See, when we talk about information to transformation, now today, if you look at our corona environment, wherein we all are stuck into our homes, and we are all forced to not step out kind of scenario. But what is happening to our schools today? In most of the world environment, the teachers are online, the children are online, everybody is able to go online and do the course. So if you really look at the whole scenario today, the schools have not stopped. Whatever the education we were talking about in our lives, that is all happening. So practically nobody, if you look at our children, they are all busy studying, correct? So there is no stopping of the process of education as we know it. Am I correct? So if you look at it, then what is stopped? So if you think that this is working out, because there is no need to invest so much in building big schools, there is no need for spending so much time and energy to hire teachers and bring them to the classroom. You just hire them, and they can be at home and provide them with all the necessary you know s- tools. So then we don't need to build any other schools possible. So today's scenario, actually, if you look at it, is showing us that there is something more to education than teaching the subjects. And this is what I want today's session to literally focus on, and to realize that where we are heading. If education was imparting information, if education was imparting the content of the syllabus, if finishing the syllabus was the prime responsibility, then schools were not needed. Today, all the curriculum is online. Today, lesson plans are online. Today, teachers are online as a support staff. Students have internet, they have all the technology, they can look at even the phone and do the necessary work. So all the information is getting transferred. And tomorrow we can even take a test of the children that have they learned, and they would pass, they would be given certificate, they would graduate. So there is a question mark, which I would, if not today, tomorrow, people will be forced to think the necessity of a school. Is there a need for a school now? The corona is proving it, that for months, when schools are not on, your formal so called education is still going on. So, what was the need for building schools and spending so much of resources
Yes.
in creating this structure? And this is the thought which every teacher must have it in their mind, that the role of teacher is not limited or restricted to educating children about the syllabus given to them. The subject which is being taught is only a means to an end. The curriculum which is given to you is only a tool for a teacher, for a system to achieve its goal. So, what is the goal and what is the end? This goal and this end is the development of the child's character. If you look at the holistic development of a child, which I just showed you in spiritual and secular education, you can only provide information through technology. You can provide it through emails or whatever. People can gather information today. One Google statement and you can get every information possible. But the purpose of education is not imparting information, it is knowledge. And that knowledge comes when the child interacts, conducts with his teacher. When they interact with teachers, they learn something more than the subject. They learn something more than the curriculum. They understand life. And that is why, in spite of all the technological development, in spite of people having tons of resources and funds to have customized teacher for their children, they still send their children to school because the social interaction, a child who can learn from the social environment cannot be given individually sitting at home. That becomes mammoth tough job for a parent to provide that kind of an environment. So I would leave you with this thought also, to think about the validity, the importance of having a school system in today's environment. So look at educators. All of us are educators, whether you are formally a teacher or not, as long as you're involved with somebody, involved with influencing anybody in any manner. As a parent, you are influencing. As a boss, you are influencing. As a senior, you influence. So everybody is an educator because we are teaching people. We are teaching and interacting with people. So that way, that becomes our prime role. So if you look at it like that, the role of an educator is helping children in a way to understand who they are, teaching them the methodology and tools to explore self exploration, to make them realize the values of life, and helping them with the process to introspect. The scope of educator is wide. It starts from nurturing them from a physical sense to building their moral stamina and building their edifice of character. But most important is the responsibility of an educator. See, your social perception of an educator is very, very important. The way we conduct, the way we are perceived is also equally important. We are all growing. We might have our fantasies, our desires, our dreams, and we are all free to explore and enjoy them. But as we explore our dreams, we have to also keep in mind that we are responsible for somebody's development too. Hence, whatever we do in our lives, we should always be aware that anytime I person as a per se person, if I am representing certain values or something which can influence others, I should be conscious of. So teachers should not think that only when I'm going to the class that my responsibility starts. Even if a teacher finds and meets a child in a shopping mall or walking on the street, the teacher is a teacher and the child is perceiving him or her. So the role of a teacher does not stop and start when they enter the classroom. It is always on anytime you meet your child. So the moment you see your child, or there is a possibility of a child seeing you or perceiving you, your role as a teacher continues. And that is what I call as an educator's responsibility. So obviously the next question will come to define a teacher. So I will tell you the storyline of how the teaching has developed over the years and how the teachers are being perceived now. See, as all of us know, a traditional question and answer to this question is, what is the role of a teacher? Obviously, a teacher is one who teaches, right? So, which is true. So, the first role of a teacher is teaching. So, if you are not good with your subject, obviously you cannot be a good teacher. So, a teacher needs to be ready with her subject, the knowledge about the subject, that is given fact. So, the role of a teacher, when we define, the primary thing we look at it, obviously we understood as teaching. But over the years, we realized that teaching was not the only thing which a teacher was supposed to do. And many times we find that teaching was also not required, because the new children whom we are seeing, the new generation, they are already very fast. You give them a book, they'll start exploring it. You give them a topic, they will start, you know, Googling it, they'll learn about it, and they are kind of prepared. So basically, the learning was faster. The learning is faster today. So it is the limit, the teacher's role was not limited only to teaching. Then we realize that teacher need to facilitate the learning process. So he became a facilitating environment in which we are helping children to learn. Rather than teaching them a subject, we help children to learn and understand the subject. So it's a kind of a facilitation program. So think of it like that, that in one role, we are we are standing in front and teaching the children. That is teaching. Then comes, you stand next to the child, hold their hand, and help them to learn the subject. So it's a program of facilitation wherein you are able to help the child to learn and understand the topic, the life, the matters of life, and everything. So it's like a facilitation program. A child is taught how to think, and you facilitate his thinking. The child is taught to explore, and you help them how to explore. And that is where there are new methodology of teaching which comes, like a project methodology, and you have the, learning centers. All that is created in that manner to facilitate learning. So I'm using these terms because I presume teachers are here. They would know, creating learning centers, project methodology, all these things are the process of facilitation. So first we teach them, then we facilitate them. So you give them an environment and you say, go and explore. And then it's like a facilitation of learning. So you have learned a concept, now you go and practice it, go and implement it. So that becomes a process of facilitation. Over the years, we realized that facilitation was also not enough. Now children are more excited, more enthused, they are more eager to learn. And if you don't give them enough, they get bored. They get switched off very quickly because they don't find anything more interesting. So as long as they are learning, they are interested, then everything is fine. And that brought into the new third thing called the environment of learning. Now, this is a key in today's time, and this is a key in values education program. Environment, the creation of environment is one of the most important aspects for a teacher. Now, it's not only for teacher, it's for all the educationists, all the people who are involved in education. That would include even the principals, administrators, deans, and everybody. Now, what does it mean to facilitate, create an environment of learning? See, think of it like, let me give you an example from when you go to a temple or a church or a mosque or anything like that, or any such spiritual place. See, the moment you enter the ambience, the portals of that place, you will immediately point to each other and the family, keep quiet now, we are entering. You dress appropriately. You suddenly get into the mood of prayer. You start looking for symbols and signs where you can pay your respect. Nobody tells you to bow down. Nobody tells you that keep quiet. Nobody tells you to go around. But you naturally do certain things, what you have made a perception of, what you understand as being respectful or as required by the environment. Correct? So when you look at that environment, suddenly you feel that no, I am here, I must conduct and behave in a certain manner. So when you look at that temple environment or any of the spiritual place, that environment itself makes you behave or conduct in a particular manner. Now remove that spiritual element and insert school in that. Now school must also reflect that. When you look at the school building, it should not look like as if it's a go down. It shouldn't look like as if there are some children screaming inside. It's some kind of a detention center. You know, it has to look, it has to feel that this is a place of learning, a place of joy, the place of happiness. So when the environment is such that the moment you enter the complex of that premises, you must feel urge to learn. You must feel the urge to know, to explore, to become a child again. And you walk into the classroom, in the corridors, you must see those boards and posters and all that, which are inviting, which are learning, which are giving you that dimension of learning, exploration. So that is environment of school. It's sad that when you walk to certain schools, you find they are so dry that even an adult won't like to sit, and we expect the children to sit there for 6 hours. So why is that? Or you dump them with so much of posters around you that they get overwhelmed with that. So what is the right environment? So this is the three steps and three phases we realize that today's teaching is not just teaching, it is more than teaching, becoming facilitators. It doesn't stop at facilitation. If you really want to take them to the next league of learning, where they become scientists and explorers and become an inquisitive human beings who are willing to explore and share their joy, then your prime role is to create the environment. Now, even if people who are here as a parent can understand the importance of environment in the house also. So if you want their children to learn and grow, and your environment at home is full of television noise or cacophony of things, then obviously you cannot expect your children to be happy. So you have to also understand that environment creation is not only limited to schools, but as a parent, your responsibility is to see to it that the learning environment that you expect and you desire for your children must be everywhere your child has to go. So, be it the home, be it the school, be it playground, or wherever, it must be the learning environment. So, if all of you are on the same page, and if anybody has a question so far, then let me know. and I'm just trying to look through and seeing if there is any question come up or not. If anybody wants to say something, they can always buzz me, because from now I would like to show you, because I in this, if we do this as a series, then I would like to also explore to you different aspects of education and how everything is used in the school system. Obviously it can be done in a different ways, but there are certain philosophies of education, there are certain, formulas, there are some principles of education which I would like to explore to you, and then show you how it is implemented and how it can be tested. So today, if you have any questions, you can let me know, or else I will share with you now. I want to share with you a lesson plan template to understand how do we implement these things, because all said and done, the important thing is, as a teacher, how do you plan these things? Now, before I show you a lesson plan, I want you to understand first a very, I'm just giving a very kind of a storyline out how a curriculum is looked at. See, the child's growth in an educational term is understood through milestones, what we call as milestones. Basically, some educationists, some intelligentsia sitting around the world, we keep researching. People keep researching on child development, and then they classify at what age what should be taught. So, what should be taught at a 2.5 years, 3 years, 4 years, and that is how they build it up in expectation that by the time a child graduates from high school, what kind of a character, what kind of a personality a child must have. Similarly, when they do a post graduation or they do a professional course, what additional skill sets they must have, so that when they come out into the workforce, what kind of a holistic person we expect them to be. So, if you look at it from both ends, either I can take it from top to bottom or bottom to top, you will see there is a logical flow of learning. And that is how the whole curriculum is devised, as to what we should teach them when they are in kindergarten, what we should teach them when they are in primary school, what we should teach them when they are in college. So when we so that by the time they finish their graduation, we are able to understand what kind of citizens we are going to have now, what kind of people, what kind of new generation we are expecting in our country, in our world. So that is how they create what we call as a curriculum or a lesson, sorry, a curriculum for the whole school system. And that curriculum is actually afterwards broken down into curriculum for different age groups. Now, the important point is, how do we take this curriculum, which is primarily academic oriented, then intertwine and integrate our values aspect in it, and then deliver it to the children? Okay, that is the key. In a very simple way, that is the key. And why do we have to do it? As I explained before, the purpose of our education is not to deliver information. The purpose of education still remains and is creating an environment of learning where the child explores inwards, finds out his own strengths, his own value systems, and becomes a character child. So building of character, which is based out of values, is our goal. So what we want is character in the child. For character, what do we want? Values. For values, we have subjects and academic elements as our tools. So we use academic subjects, the secular knowledge, as a tool, as a means to deliver values, and that values hopefully one day would churn into the character of the child. So this is the process in a very broad and simple manner. So now, how do we take this and put it into our classroom? Now, there are many elements and facets which we have to go through it. But right today, I would like to introduce you to a values based lesson plan. Okay. Now, in this lesson plan, when you look at it, you will understand. Let me open it up for you. 1 minute. Let me bring it up for you all so you can at least have a look together. Now, when we look at this value plan, there you will start seeing and understanding what it is. So let's look at it now properly. Now this is a lesson plan. Have a look at it. Now if you read it on top, you have the theme and subject, and that is basically the topic which you're going to choose for teaching. So I can request all of you, uh, depending on the classes which you are taking, depending on the age group you are handling, you can also you can use this template if you like to. And if anybody is interested in this particular template, I can even share it to you later. You can provide your emails. But right now, let us look at it step by step. So theme, and basically you can all insert for yourself, is a topic what we look at from, like, it could be law of gravity, it could be grammar, it could be, in a kindergarten it could be teaching them number value. So anything you can choose that becomes your theme. And in a subject also is like mathematics, English, life sciences, or whatever you want to put it. Lesson objective. Now lesson objective are the academic objectives that we are expected to achieve while teaching this subject. Now, when I tell you academic objectives, look at it from this perspective that, suppose I'm teaching a subject, a topic, say gravity, law of gravity. I need to, my children to understand what is gravitational, what is gravity, what is law of gravity, or how it is applicable in my life, how does it make a difference in child's life by learning about the law of gravity. So these can be my learning objectives. And again, depending on at what age I'm teaching, you create that. So I'm sure all the teaching staff, they know how to create this part, right? It's the lesson objective. Then I would like to take you to theme and subject. This theme is actually what I was talking to you about. That is the same thing. Now, value word. I'm consciously deleting certain. Not using all the columns here. So the column which I'm using, you can just focus on them. So let's take the next column is values. Now, value is, you put the words here that you think while dealing with this topic, what value do you think I can communicate with my child? As I said to you, that we are teaching them subject as a means to an end. So values, think of it like an end. So I may say that, okay, I'm going to teach them the value of, say, right conduct, or the value of truth, or love, or peace, or whatever. So that value you mention here, what you feel that while teaching this subject, I can highlight and I can bring forth to the children. So you mention those value words here. Okay. Now, when you're teaching that value, say, for example, I say I want to teach the child how to, what is the truth of life, or be truthful, always be honest. And I am going to teach him a subject. It could be mathematics, it could be anything. How do I connect these two values and I give them other vocabularies while talking about it? I may say you must be honest, you must be truthful, or you must be genuine in speaking. See, while using this for highlighting one value, I'm going to use many other vocabulary words. So think of this core human values as the other words which you may use to communicate. Now, why? What is the importance of it? On the face of it, these core human value element is actually giving the children more vocabulary to think. Because unfortunately, in today's environment, the children are not getting enough good words to use. If they look at movies, the language is very different. If they communicate with each other, the vocabularies are very low standard. So we are not able to provide them with that kind of environment where they can learn better words. So as a teacher, if you can focus on this core human values and mention that while using that word, what other words I can throw in, so they may not be the focal point of teaching, but they become part of your vocabulary to use. The new vocabulary word is basically your academic words. So while teaching a subject, you also have this, right? You want to know, while teaching this one topic, what are the words I'm going to highlight to children. So as a thumb rule, you must have at least 5 new words for a week at least, depending again on the age bracket. It can be anywhere from 3 to 10 or whatever words you want to include. But at least 5 words in a week, a child must learn something new. So that this process to write it down initially before you start the program will give you a preparation that while I'm talking to my children, I will use these words in my vocabulary so that the children will, over the period of time, they would learn these 5 words in a week. So they will know how to use them in sentence, their vocabulary would increase, their language, their behavior, their whole personality would start shifting with this new idea. So use that. Then obviously you have skills required to do that project, so that is different. Emergent values, I would say for now you leave it. This is basically in a simple terms is while I'm going to teach them X value, but when I go to the class, the mood of the children are different. And suddenly I realize that what I came to teach, I didn't teach, but I taught them something different. Actually, they learned something more. So what they learn, you capture it here so that tomorrow we understand that while teaching our X subject, I can also deliver Y and Z outputs. So because that's how the beauty of learning is. Now, this is how we prepare our lesson plan. Now we have got a topic, we have got this plan that this much I have to achieve. So the academic objectives are mentioned, our value objectives are mentioned in the value objectives. So, sorry, let me just highlight 2 minutes on value objectives. Value objectives are based on the core human values that you have mentioned. So when you mention the values words, value objectives will be what do you want them to learn about the value. So if it is truth and you want them to know how, what is truth about this topic, you want them to have, let the child learn the exploring self introspection, let the child learn how to speak the truth, let the child be understanding to be honest about expressions, let the child have the empathy before he speaks the truth. So all that can become your values objectives. So the most important element in the whole lesson plan for you now would be lesson objective and values objective. And just fill up little bit about core human values as vocabulary for values and new vocabulary for academic words. So in these four, if you carry these four brackets, I think you are set for your next class. So if you do that way, that will help you to think and program yourself as to how do we go into the classroom. Now, when you have done this, now this has become your objective to achieve in the class. Now, to do this, you need activities. Now, I always promote that teachers must at least go with 3 to 5 activities in hand. Do not walk into the classroom with one activity or one thought that I'm going to tell them. Any class up to high school, in senior high is different style of teaching. But up to high school, you must have certain activities. Activities are what do I mean by activities? Now, activities can be just a speech that I'm going to deliver talk today. So a teacher is delivering concept. That is one sort of activity. Then teacher can always think of, okay, can I have a discussion based today, that I'm going to introduce a topic and let them discuss and debate and understand the topic. Or it could be I'm going to give them certain tools and certain instructions, and they do a project in the class. They do some work, hands on work. They feel their senses. Activity can be I want them to listen to the audio or see a video and then write their experiences or share back their talks. So they learn about public speaking, they learn about etiquettes of talking, listening, observing, all that. So if you notice, there are different lesson, there are different ways of delivering the lesson. One could be your touch, one could be just listening, one could be doing activity hands on, one could be in the group independently or in the group. So there are many ways where you can design your program delivery. And that is what we mean by lesson activities. Now, if you look at the next portion, that is lesson activity. So in this lesson activity phase, you have activity one. So in activity one, you can write, it can be, say, a, a, a lecture, or it can be a video show, it can be a project, it can be anything. So that is your activity one. So you define your activity as, am I going to do a project, am I going to do a delivering a speech, and am I going to give them a problem to solve, am I going to do a group activity? So whatever you feel, that is your activity one. The objective for objectives is taking it from the same on top what you have written lesson objectives, you put that here. Okay, in that you will also put your values objective as well as lesson objective, because there are objectives which you have written. This one activity may not fulfill all the objectives. So simple. So keep it simple. As much as you want to put it here. And then you think what materials I need, what actually I require. And more important here is the procedural part of it. Here I want to give you some kind of an homework now. Just don't want to make it any more heavier. So just to understand that how you will deliver it, now think of it. Now, how you want to write it in this way is that, suppose, for example, I am preparing a class and I do not, like, I have something happened in my personal life and I am not able to go to the class. Can I hand over this sheet to any one of you and say, hey, in my place, can you please go and deliver? We are all teachers, so we understand how to do things. But when I'm not there, I want my lesson plan to be delivered in certain manner, because that's how I've trained my children to learn. And that's what my flow of learning is there. I've already given them speech. Now I want to do a group activity, but I'm not going tomorrow for some reason. So when I give this activity sheet in your hand and you read this sheet, you must be able to step by step know how to conduct in the class. And that is how you are supposed to write. So even if it means to the way you want to call your children, the way you invite them, the way you explain them can be mentioned here. Here, even you can write certain kind of, a statement which you want to remember. Now, today I would like to leave you at this point. That's it. So that if you feel because this is a little bit technical. That's why I kept it for teaching staff only. So, just to summarize, you understand that the whole presentation, the whole concept of ours was to understand the role of a teacher, the role of education, to understand where we are, why are we here. So the first important thing to understand is that whole process is focused for the child. We are child centric. We have to understand that whatever we do is for the development and betterment of the child. Now, what are we doing with children? Is we are helping them to understand who they are and helping them to build their character. For character, what do we need? We understand the character is nothing but building blocks of values. So if we have values, we get character. For values, we need to interact with children. Now, how do we interact with children? Is through our schooling, school curriculum, and lessons. So we need the school education program, school curriculum to piggy bank on which we deliver values so that we can have character. So this is our the whole idea, the whole program to look at life from that perspective. So if you look at it, and then to take this whole program from teaching to facilitating to creating environment, now we come into delivery of things. For delivering, we have a lesson plan. For lesson plan, I gave you an idea about it. I know it's not easy in one day to comprehend everything, but to understand that for lesson plans, we important elements are the subject objectives, lesson objectives, the value objectives, and the vocabulary words. If you can define these things and then create a lesson plan. Now, we can discuss each one as we go forward. We can look at it differently every time and take small aspects and maybe make it more interactive if we all can, bring forth something. So let me see if you have any questions coming up here. Teachers attribute, somebody has asked. Sai Mahesh, I hope we have discussed that little bit enough. Are there any portions of every items you mentioned regarding the role of a teacher? Which one should be bigger? Yes. Uh, Examples of this environment. I think I will like the teachers to come forward and share at which level they are in for their classes. So, for example, some teacher may be good at, you know, they may be good at what do you call teaching. Some may have experienced in facilitating the program, and some might have done excellent work in terms of creating the environment. So I would like Eddie that we will together explore these things and see if we can get somebody from the audience to share their experiences on it. Is there anybody having any questions here? Anybody has any questions? Anybody wants to come in on the screen to say, I would welcome them. Everybody is so silently looking at me. Is there anybody having any questions? Very strange. We've got a good strength here. Everybody's looking very nice, and I'm happy that people are still smiling. Okay, at least tell me, how was the session? Did you all like it? Did you find it heavy, light? Is there anything which you would like to explore in depth more? At least say something. You all can speak. Your speakers are on, or you can at least type. Everybody's silent. Sudarshan Nasir, he says, how to connect with youngsters while teaching them. Well, that is, in a simple way, Sudarshan, we call it icebreakers, and we also look at it from a perspective of activities. How do we do that? So the best way first is to understand that when you go into the classroom, how many of you make an attempt to connect with children per se? How many of you know their names? How many of you know their background? See, from some in some countries, the privacy laws don't allow you to explore so much, but at the same time, a teacher knows everything about the child. Whatever is relevant by reading their files, by talking to them. Because if you don't know the child, you cannot connect, especially when they are more than 12 years old. That becomes a challenge. So before you really interact with the children, you must informally or formally get to know their background. It is very important. See, what we do in our schools, basically, we are do couple of things. Initial, every year, we do their medical test, initial, immediately. We also do the interview with their parents so that we build a rapport and understanding as to where your child is. And then at the end of the year, we again connect with the parent and the child both to know where they have reached, so that we have a starting point and an ending point for ourselves. So I cannot tell that I have taught a child when I don't know what he knew before. So is it possible that the child already knew something and that you kept hammering him in the same class, and you find the child is not interested in the class because he already knows it? So imagine, without knowing that fact, if you deliver the topic to the child, out of fear or out of respect, he may not say it, but then he will not be able to focus much. And if it gets repeated couple of times, then he'll lose interest in your class because he knows the topic already. So that we have seen it even from first grade onwards. I have seen this this reaction of the child. If the child does not get interested in you, then he loses subject. If he knows a subject or a subject is not presented to him in interesting manner, then again you lose him. And with all of this, you cannot build a rapport with the person. And if you have a rapport with the person, then the child will say it. The child will tell you in a very nice manner. So to develop connection with the children, first and foremost is to know the child and be humble about it. There is nothing wrong in it. In today's time, you must know your child and come to the children level. You don't come from an adult ego state and talk to the child ego state. You have to sometimes switch. See, there is always a debate. Should we be friendly with our children or not? Should the parents be friendly with a child or not? That's a good debate. Always I've seen this happening. And what we found, I'm just sharing in experiences of people and how what they found best was that a parent is a parent. A parent should not become a friend. That's what they say, because they have enough friends to be friends. So what they're looking for is a parent who can be friendly. They're not looking friend in a parent, but they are certainly looking for a parent who can be a friend. See, you can do whatever you want, but the child will not leave his friend and play with you in that same manner. Certainly, after a certain age, it becomes difficult. They want their friends. They can speak a different language, they can relax differently. It is natural, and it is, I would say, it is required also. So, for connecting with the different ages, you realize that there is a need of a child which shifts. So, can the parent also mold themselves according to that? So, it becomes a very important thing that a father has to remain a father, but a friendly father. That means you can be friendly with your child, but don't become his friend. A mother can be friendly, but she should always remain a mother too. Because if you become a friend, then where will you go for parents? Where will he go for his teacher? So a teacher can be friendly, but teacher cannot be friend only. So just a small, thing which has come out. So I thought that would be something to think about and look at how you can develop it. Jobini has asked, what are the values that we need to focus for students while they are learning online at home in facing this pandemic? Some students might feel worried, and even some of them miss the moment at class. Certainly, one thing which this pandemic can teach every one of us is discipline. When they go to class, they have no option but to be disciplined. They have no option but to come on time, sit in a particular manner, listen to the teacher. But at home, they can twist and turn and not take bath, and your moms have to run behind the children. See, all that is natural in a home environment. But when you are in the school environment, all these things happen naturally. They behave differently, they are conscious differently, they dress differently. So what you can do, the best thing is to create an really good environment. The children must go through the same routine as much as possible. Well, they may not have to wear a school uniform in the house, but they can certainly take bath and dress up appropriately to go in front of the camera or in front of the learning centers. So that is discipline, I would say, is the prime focus, because that requires how you wake up in the morning, how you continue to sleep on time. It should be the same way as you are doing a normal life. Only thing is, instead of going out, you are at home. That's all the difference. So, but it's not easy. It is really not easy to work from home. All the people who work from home, they know what it is. Sometimes you end up working much harder than going to office, and sometimes you don't work at all. So that is a part of discipline. Sudarshan is asking, we often quote some catchy Bollywood instance and dialogues to deliver our value-based content. Is it a good practice? Bollywood content. I would not mind, as long as I said to you before in the first way, that understand this. One positive is not sufficient to have one negative, to negate one negative. You need at least 10 positive to negate one. So be careful about that balance. So the you can use, I can't, like, what I think is, you can use dialogues and instances from anywhere, as long as it really complements and supplements your learning, and it does not become what do you call, a challenge that you have to you have to overtake afterwards. Imagine you handling things, and you quoting something, and that becomes a pain afterwards. And you tend to, now you have to worry about, how do I divert children from that. So just keep that in mind. Okay, anything else? Just to try what might we often quote some, okay, anything else? Are there any portions for every items you mentioned regarding the role of teacher, teaching, facilitating, creating environment? Which one should be get bigger portion? Bigger portion, I would say they equally important, all of them. But in today's scenario, bigger portion is creating environment, because creation of environment facilitates both of them. If the environment is right, then you can teach easily, you can facilitate comfortably. If environment is not right, then those two also will get hindered. And environment creation is a very, very, very conscious and a very elaborate effort. So I would give more stress on environment creation in today's scenarios more than anything else. There's some good questions coming up. Anything else? Welcome, Sudarshan. Now, see, big values, when we use values words, they sound very big and heavy. The point is, don't get too, like, worried and conscious about the word value education and all that. Unfortunately, because we have lost our own self, so we have to remind and we say I and all that. Value education in simple words is literally what we did 20 years back in a natural way, where we lived in a joint family system. Our children learned it so beautifully. We learned it differently. So when we learn from environment, when our society reaches a level of consciousness wherein just by living in the society, we become a good human being, that is the goal of value education. So there is no need for an extra teaching. This today we are talking about extra teaching shows in itself that there is a lack, there is something missing in the society, social development. So the moment we reach a social norm, social standards, wherein a child getting up in the morning and walking out in the streets is able to learn values from everybody. You know, we used to behave better outside the house because of our neighbors, because we were worried, what will my neighbor uncle think? He could scream and shout at me if I do a mistake. So that conscious living was possible in that environment. So environment creation becomes so important that once we are in that environment, we naturally learn. Because today we have lost that environment, so we are trying to recreate it in this manner. So hopefully one day we can reach a state that whenever child looks at any elders, he would talk in respect, because we have taught him respect. We have not taught him to respect elders. We have taught him to respect.
Taught him to
So he'll
respect.
respect
So he respect
everybody.
everybody.
Okay, I think somebody
Okay.
held his Ramga. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so any other question? Or I think
I
today's
think
time is done.
today's time is done.
I don't want to hold you all for too long, but I don't see any other questions coming up. So I would like to leave you with my contact details. Let me flash that for all of you, so that if anybody wishes to send us an email, they can do it. And if you need this kind of lesson plan, or so let me know. Then I can share that also with you all. And if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to pen it down. We can discuss that. And if you like what we shared today, we can even do next session within few days or whenever it's convenient. So all of you are welcome to send me a short note with your questions, with your comments, and with your suggestions. So if anybody has a final word, they can say, or thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you all here. So thank you for joining from our StreamYard and from our YouTube channels. So thank you very much.